It's not just oxygen that has to be exchanged in our cells and given to our cells. Carbon dioxide is a big one too. Remember, carbon dioxide is produced by every cell in the mitochondria. The mitochondria produces CO2. The CO2 is going to diffuse out of the blood, out of the tissue into the blood plasma. And blood plasma is mostly water, and water plus CO2 yields carbonic acid, and carbonic acid is going to change the pH of everything, and this is not something we want to happen. Okay, so what we really need to do is come up with a way to bind carbon dioxide and make our bodies safe for the transport of materials like carbon dioxide. And so here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how this happens. And this is kind of cool. And yet it's simple. Carbon dioxide leaves the cells and diffuses into the plasma. And here's the thing. It really depends on several factors. Now, some of that carbon dioxide, probably 10% or less, is going to get picked up by hemoglobin and actually carried by hemoglobin as carbon dioxide. Some of it is dissolved in the plasma, just as carbon dioxide, and we're okay with that. But the majority of it has to go through a chemical change. And here's the scoop. We want to make sure that carbon dioxide is bound up. We don't want it acidifying our blood. And here's what happens. Ready? Here's what we do. When carbon dioxide goes into the blood, by virtue of the action of hemoglobin, we're going to bond up a hydrogen. Let's see how. Because of enzymes that are found in the cytoplasm of the red blood cell, you're going to get a bicarbonate ion formed. All right? Now, here's what happens. Remember how I said CO2 and H2O are going to bond up? Okay? And they're going to form carbonic acid. Well, that's true. But watch what else can happen. Now, because of the intermediary hemoglobin, this is an acid, okay? Hemoglobin will grab the hydrogen from this acid and literally bond that up, which makes hemoglobin, in essence, a weak acid. But that's okay, because it's a weak acid. And what do we mean by a weak acid? We mean it's an acid that doesn't readily give up its hydrogen, say, to the plasma. Then what happens is we get a bicarbonate ion that comes off of this dissociation from the hydrogen. And this bicarbonate ion is given off to the plasma. Now that does two things. Number one, it ties up the carbon dioxide. All right, so it's not going to acidify the blood. And number two, because the acid part of it, the hydrogen ion, is bound up in the hemoglobin. But number two, this bicarbonate ion can actually, you'll notice it has a negative charge. It can actually act as a buffer in our blood, therefore absorbing and indeed neutralizing any other acids. Say, for example, like when I drink orange juice or an acidic drink. So this is a very nice system. Well, then how do we get the CO2 to breathe out? Well, just the opposite happens. When we get to our lungs, the opposite process occurs, and the CO2 indeed biochemically is going to be released. The hemoglobin is going to give up its hydrogen, not to just water. It's going to give up its hydrogen to CO2, and literally we're going to allow CO2 and water to bond together to form. Let me say that again. We're going to get the hemoglobin. It's going to give up its hydrogen to the bicarbonate ion, which is going to, I just skipped a step, which is going to form the carbonic acid, which is going to form the H2O and the CO2, and the CO2 is going to be given off. See, it's just backwards. So now the CO2 is going to be given off. The hemoglobin, literally gives up that hydrogen. So what we're doing is we're giving off that hydrogen without getting it stuck in the plasma, because we don't want hydrogens in our plasma. This whole idea of oxygen and CO2 transport, you and I have it easy. You and I have it very easy because you and I simply have these nice alveoli, and these alveoli, it's a nice diffusion sort of situation. We don't need to worry about countercurrent exchange mechanisms. We don't have to worry about anything. It's just a simple diffusion, and because of hemoglobin, whether you want to capture oxygen or get rid of CO2, life is very easy, and we don't have to think very much about it. Thank hemoglobin next time you bleed.